And we're live. Hi, everybody. It's me. I'm back. I have been gone for a couple weeks. I went back to normal life. Uh, you know, just delivering carry out to the people, which I guess makes me an essential worker. I don't fucking know. It doesn't matter. But yeah, I went back to work and back to trying to slowly be a normal person, whatever that means. That's enough about me. It's not about me. It's about Blake Wexler. We are going to be chatting comedy with him. We're going to be asking him about his startup and where he's at today and how quarantine's been treating him. Just a little bit of background information. He started off in Philly, then he went to Boston, out in LA now, I'm assuming. I don't know, a lot of people like go home and like quarantine with their parents, so who knows. Anyway, he has been featured at numerous comedy festivals. He was the first comedian on a watch party at The Bachelor. He is a regular on Crack Podcast, Daily Side Guests, and Todd Glass Show, and he has 3 albums out. Three albums out on iTunes, so make sure you check those out. So let's go live with Blake and see what he's been up to. Let's get this poppin'. Hi.
How's it going? Good to see you.
It's going. Good to see you as well. How are
It
you
is
holding up?
going. That was a shitty question I just asked you, and I apologize. That was my mistake. How's it go? It's great. It's so great.
It's
Uh,
lovely. We don't live in a
San
trash fire.
No, 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 no. It's pristine. No complaints. No, it's bad. Yeah, it's bad. But yeah, relatively okay, I guess is the best answer I can give.
Relatively okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. Just out here trying to fight the good fight. That's all
of
that
course.
we can do. And yeah, I wanna ask some questions about how you started off in comedy. I know that it's like on your bio it says Philly, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So what was that like? You were very young when you started.
Yes, I still am. No, I was very, I think men being self-conscious about their age is like the funniest thing in the entire world. So,
Truly.
I remain young to this day. Yeah, I did start off young. By the way, it's nice to speak with you. I think when I was in Detroit, I believe you weren't there that night. I think Connor, may have been the only person there, unless you stopped in real quick, or maybe you weren't there for that long, but
I
it was
don't think
last
I was
August.
there. So
Yeah.
it's nice to
Okay,
meet
good.
you.
It is very nice to meet you too. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did, to answer your question, I started when I was 15, so 2 years ago.
Hmm.
But I started when I was 15, and yeah, I took like a comedy class, which a lot of comics talk shit on, but like, and they're not perfect. It's not, gonna make you a comedian, but
Right.
it like makes you go on stage and in front of like a supportive audience. So I did that, and like my mom would like drive me around and take me to open mics, which is crazy thinking about how like bad
Bless
they
her.
are. She's like a saint. So oh,
Yeah.
she's here. She just wrote hello. That's hilarious. I didn't even know she was here. So that's great. Yeah,
They
she's
always
to
know.
this
They
day.
always know.
She heard her name mentioned, and then immediately
Exactly.
got it. Yeah, an alert. Not even through Google or anything, just in the mail somehow. So yeah, she was super supportive, and like it's funny. I think about now, or like as an adult, how bad like open mics are, and then it's like, oh my god, like my mom set like I went with my mom had to sit through it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So but yeah, started there, and Philly is now like an incredible scene, but it was a pretty like young scene at the time. And now, yeah, and then I went to Boston for school, and then I moved out to LA about 8 years ago.
Very nice.
Hmm.
So what I want to talk a little bit about the Philly comedy scene and the Boston
Yeah.
comedy scene. What are those scenes like for you, or what were they like for you?
So Philly's very different now. Have you been to either? Have you done stand up in either of those cities?
I did stand up in Philly at the Raven Lounge, so it was just at the open mic, but it was very funny.
Yeah. God, that room's insane. That room is insane.
Yeah.
If it's anything like I remember it, it was like in the. By the way, if you hear horns, there's a protest going outside my window right now. So that's what that is.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I asked them all to put windscreens over their horns so it wouldn't be too loud, but anyway, that's not a popular sign. So Yeah. So Philly was very like for some reason not that great of a scene, not as great as it should be when I first moved there or when I first started there.
Mhm.
Where there wasn't helium yet. Like I feel like in order for a city to have like an A scene, you need that mainstream club and a cool hip club, like what you guys are. So I think that Philly didn't have either. Like they had a bunch of just those clubs that still smelled like smoke somehow, just stunk of like like cigarettes, and had all old headshots of like people named like Richie McDonald, and,
Oh,
and
I love
but
it.
oh yeah, with not a single female, like maybe like Paula, like a newspaper clipping of Paula Poundstone, but the rest was just like Patrick Fitzpatrick, and
Yeah.
that was the scene. And then Helium opened up, which was amazing. And since then, now it's incredible. Like there's all these
Yeah.
cool, alternative rooms. Good is there, which is a great, hip room.
Mhm.
And if you're just tuning in, we're talking Philadelphia comedy. It's just like AM radio. And then the Punchline has a room there now too. And yeah, like the Raven Lounge is one of those rooms where I've had the worst sets of my entire life and the best, because
Yeah.
it can go either way. And actually, I saw, I mean, I was about to say not to be too much of a downer. How much more down can it get?
How much more?
But like, not to be a downer, but I saw that you had posted about like Chris Cotton, I think, a couple of days
Yes.
ago, who
Yeah.
is a good friend of mine from Philly and a very very funny comedian. And it was a very sweet post that you had. But he ran the Raven Lounge as well, or one of like there were various crews that like would take it over, and then it would be
Of course.
passed to another crew,
Yes.
and then Boston was different, where Philly was like a scene like on the come up, where it was, even though it's obviously it's not a new city, but the scene was newer. And Boston was like a very well established scene where, and continues to be, but they
Of course.
had like, when I first moved there, the Comedy Connection, which was like their A club, and which is now a 2,000 seat theater. But then they had, and still have the Comedy Studio, which was like their very smart, hip room where
Yeah.
those audiences were incredible. So, yeah,
Those are the
super
best.
progressive. Yeah, it's so cool. It was so great. So, yeah, and then there were those weird, like rooms that have been around for like 40 years or like since the
Mhm.
80s, and haven't changed at all. And yeah, so two very different scenes. But Boston even had an interesting thing where there were Boston headliners there, where they were like, they didn't really need to bring in outside headliners really for a lot of these. So you had the Comedy Connection, and that was when, you would get like oh, Colin Quinn would come, or like Sarah Silverman, before she got too big to do that. And then now
Right.
there's just a theater. So I'm not sure. I think Laugh Boston's there. I've never been there. I don't know anything about that place, but yeah, it was
Very cool.
cool city.
Hell
Yeah.
yeah. So do you go back and visit either Philly or Boston, or like, I mean, when you tour and stuff, do you go back there?
Yeah, Philly's like so good to me, where it's like, oh, no matter like it's so like, oh, do I need to know I'll have a crowd? There aren't like, there's like 10 cities that I can be like,
Mhm.
okay, if I want to record something here, I can do it. But
Yeah.
Philly's like, they're so supportive. Or Philly, I go back to, my parents moved to Charleston, South Carolina, a bunch of years ago. So but my girlfriend's family's still from Philly, so we go back there a lot, and I always like bookend it with shows. And yeah, so go back, and it's fun. Like they're really good to you, like you just, even a couple days before, like, hey, can I do some small sets around, or Helium, I'll like email like a couple months in advance, and
Hell
headline a
yeah.
night or two there. Yeah, so
Very
Boston,
cool.
yeah, Boston, I don't get back to that much, but yeah, great city. I would like to.
Hell yeah. So
Hmm.
when did you feel you were ready to like take that plunge and like move to LA? What was that like for you?
I was wrong. I thought I made a gross miscalculation about my own skill and talent. No, well, not a hard no, but yeah, I went to Emerson College in Boston, and which is like an entertainment kind of school. And what a lot of students do is their last semester they intern out in Los Angeles. So they have like this Boston school, you know, like I would say 75% of the people who go there like move to LA. So I interned at Comedy Central and met enough and knew a lot of like, I had a lot of friends who moved out here where that's a big thing, you know, when you're going to a new scene is to have like, not just like life friends, but also a support system to be like, hey, this guy who's, or, you know, girl who's hanging out at the, you know, at this club is, they're
Yeah.
not a weirdo, like they're funny, you know, you just like, it's almost like co-signers, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
Gotta
that
have
was
it.
really nice. Yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
for
Yeah.
sure.
So that was really helpful. So I knew more people that, in LA than I did in New York, oddly. So yeah, it was just like a natural move.
Hell yeah. So what was that like kind of establishing yourself in a hub like that? Like I know it was 8 years ago, but
Hmm.
you know, hopefully some once we're back to normal, some young comics can, you know, learn from this interview a little bit.
Yeah, I hope so. Like it was it's interesting where it depends. The best advice I got, and it sounds so simple, but like, what do you want to do, and then position yourself that way. So, I never lived in New York. A lot of my like friends that I respect are like, hey, like if you want to be like a touring stand up, you know, like work your ass off, go to New York. If you, my opinion is, if you want to do stand up and write and act, you know, some sort of combination of those things, come to LA because there's just more opportunities for it. So to establish myself out here, I was very lucky where I had met Todd Glass back in Philly. Like we went to the same high school, and I met him after a show, and he was very kind. He's very supportive of young comics. So he kind of like his co-sign of like, you know, hey, Blake is you know, funny, or I mean, but he
Yeah,
was also fair where, you know, if he was recommending me to the Hollywood Improv, for instance, to be like, yeah, Blake could do a 5 to 7 minute set. He wouldn't be like, oh, this fucking idiot should headline the Improv
very
at
fair.
22. Yeah,
Yeah.
which is helpful. You know, would not, God, can you imagine? Yeah, all right. So opening for me will be Dave Chappelle, obviously. Yeah, no, that was obviously not. So don't be a loner. Comedy is a team sport. Even say, yeah, that's a good quote.
Yeah.
So yeah, you do need a community where you do see like, I don't know, like you see almost groups from scenes move
Hmm.
out where it's like, oh, here's the Chicago group, and then like, oh, the Portland crew just moved down, you know?
Totally.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a very real thing.
it
It's
is
very
for sure.
comedy can very much so be like high school for different
Yeah,
reasons at different times. So yeah,
right.
when making that huge decision and that plunge to like, okay, I'm ready for LA, I'm ready for New York City, even Chicago or Atlanta or whatever, you know, any sort
Hmm.
of hub, it's very nerve-wracking. It's something that I think about all the time. It's like, okay, even if it's like a year from now and COVID's officially whatever, I'm like, okay, what's the next move? And it's scary
Yeah,
to think about, man. So
it
good on
is.
you for doing it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, people help to make it easier, you know, and comedy is like high school as well, in that every comedian has acne as well.
I
So,
literally have a patch on a zit right now. So
oh, I
thanks
didn't
for
even see.
noticing, Blake.
It
Thanks.
it blends in perfectly. I did not notice. You've lit yourself in the perfect way to hide your skin.
Thank you. Thank you. So now I feel like I'm
Yeah,
ready for LA. So
you
yeah,
are.
it's
Oh,
official.
it's all about hiding your blemishes, both emotionally and physically. So,
Exactly.
uh, yeah, yeah.
Thank you for the advice.
Of
Um,
course.
Speaking of advice, it's kind of why we started these interviews because we
Hmm.
want to know kind of like what advice would you give to younger Blake, while also simultaneously like giving advice to like younger comics that are just now starting off. If you have anything
Yeah.
about like road work or like booking yourself or trying to be a professional in this like very funny way, etc.
Yeah, I think the big thing is, and Christ, I've only just figured this out in the past like few years where, you know, I've been doing stand up like over half my life, literally at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So, treat it like a job, or like a job almost, and be responsible. And it sounds like, that sounds silly, but like, you know, I would go on stage sometimes and it's like, oh, I like, I'll have a couple drinks or whatever and just have fun, you know, which is almost, which obviously I'm a human being, but like, you should have a goal for each one of your sets. This is advice I would give myself. It may not work for everyone, but
Yeah.
just take it. Just don't waste a set. I think would be my biggest, piece of advice. But wasting, if you're like, hey, I just wrote a lot of new material this week. I already did all these sets, trying out my new jokes. I'd like to do something loose, not really prepare, try to write it. You know what I mean? Like that's
Yeah.
also productive. So, but just I tell myself, make sure you're being productive, with each one of your sets, because, you could like go through dry spells, like, so don't waste them, because there's people who would love to have your spot. You know what I mean? So,
Very true. Yeah.
yeah, I would do that, and then just like hang out more, I
Yeah.
guess, where, and it's funny, like went back to drinking again, but like, you don't have to like get drunk at like comedy rooms every night. You know what I mean? Like you can just go to the show and
It's
chill as
very
if it's like,
true.
yeah, in your living
Yeah.
room.
And you
Right.
also you learn that I think pretty early on, like
Hmm.
if you're really taking stand up seriously, it's like, all right, it was really fun this first, let's say 6 months to a year, maybe even into your second year. You're getting really drunk and you're partying all the time and it's
Right.
fun. And then you realize this makes me really happy. How can I turn this into money? How can I turn this into a business? Oh,
Yeah.
wait, I can't be drunk all the time and I can't be
Right.
staying out until 3 a.m., 4 a.m., whatever. I
Yeah.
know it's a lot about the hang, but it's like you gotta like feed your soul a little bit and be nice to your body if you're gonna be like smart and sharp on stage, you know?
Well put. Yeah, so well put. Because it's not, it is hard to like. By the way, there wasn't like an incident with me where it's like, oh, Blake, like impaled himself on the microphone. He was so drunk, or like on the mic stand. But it's
Right.
still like just maximizing time. And you're right. It is like it's not karaoke. Like you're not going out and doing karaoke. Like you're
Mm-hmm.
actually doing something. Moving hopefully to a point in your career. And it is easily to conflate that with with just a hang, because you're
Mm-hmm.
doing it in a bar, you're doing it with friends, like it's night where most people are socializing. So you can
Right.
do all that, but like also, you have to have those nights where you're actually, building something.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Hmm.
I do want to touch a little bit of like on base about you have 3 albums out now, right?
Right, right.
Okay, so you have 3 albums out. I mean, you're a regular on all these like well-known podcasts. I kind of want to talk about like how do you take the steps to get there? To like successfully record an album that you're happy with, I guess would be point number one of my question. And point number
Hmm.
two, do you believe it's being in the right place at the right time when it comes to stand up and getting to know these, seniors of comedy? I don't know. Explain a little bit of that. Like, how do you get to where you're at?
Yeah, I think it's like, by the way, if younger comics watching, you should strive to be further than where I'm at. This is, I know you weren't saying that, but yeah, I think it's just maximizing your shots to be like discovered, I guess, like,
Yeah.
or just maximizing opportunities. So it's whether you're like, the easiest one is, oh, just if you go up and treat all of your shows very seriously and do really, really well, like if you kill each time, that's maximizing your chances, or it maximizes your luck, where
Right.
you hear like, oh, someone was in the audience that night and they got, like signed by this person or got a TV show. But it's not just luck. It's like, yeah, but that comedian who was discovered had killed for 120 straight days before that one. It's not like, oh, this
Yeah.
person sucks and then they just happen to do well one night. Actually, that has happened a handful of times, but it's
Mhm.
generally not how it works. So yeah, and just be a human being. I remember when I was like really young, I would just be I would go hang out at Helium. I would be like, they would let me sneak in when I was 17, and I would want to meet the headliners and stuff. And I would like
Yeah.
just lurk, I would just fucking lurk. And it was probably, I guess luckily I was young, so it was not as off putting as it would be if a grown up did it, but still
Very
off
true.
putting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So just be a human being. If you can go up and say hello, like, be polite, don't ask for shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, if someone sees you and you're funny, just stay in touch with people, just be nice. Um, and then, if you ever like need to call in a favor, judge what your relationship is with that person.
Mhm.
Where if you saw a comedian once and you met them and everyone was drinking, just be like, hey, can I come open for you at this place? It would be weird. you know.
Yeah.
But some people, but also it could not be weird. Maybe they're super cool and maybe they're super funny. It would work. But
Yeah.
yeah, just kind of think, you know, like be a human being. Don't just randomly ask for shit.
Be a human being is probably the best advice I've gotten, and I've done a ton of these fucking
Oh,
interviews.
good.
And be a human being is so important, and it's like you can kind of read people's energy. You know what I mean? Like if they want to be left the fuck alone, leave them the fuck alone. But
Yeah.
if they're like engaging with you, then like play it cool, have fun, be yourself, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah.
I don't. Do you know Mike Cronin?
I have to go. No, I do know Mike very well. I love Mike.
That was perfect.
One of the conditions of me doing this interview is that his name would not come up. No, he's so sweet. But please, here, you say what you were going to say. I don't want to interrupt.
So Mike Cronin, very good friend of myself. He's dating like one of my best friends.
Yeah, she's great. Lindsay,
yes, we love her.
Very funny comedian as well. Yeah.
Yes, and Mike Cronin, great friend of the Independent. Love him so much. He opened for Tom Segura in the fall of last year, and Lindsay and I went, enjoyed it, whatever. And he ended up being like, "Do you want to come backstage and just check out the green room, check out the stage, whatever?" It wasn't even about meeting Tom. And we were like, "Yeah, of course we want to check out the stage. Of course we want to go to the green room." And he ended up being back there, and I got to meet Tom, and it was great, and he was, you know, decently friendly. But at the same time, I could feel him being like, "I just did an hour. I want to be left alone." So I left him alone. He invited us back on the tour bus eventually. It was very, very nice, very kind.
So
it was
cool.
a great experience. But I remember, like, for a second, I was like, I will regret forever if I don't mention the Independent.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, this is such a far shot. He will probably never headline our tiny little room. But if he ever wants to work out an hour and doesn't want anybody to know about it or whatever, like it's a very common thing for people at his, you know, stature to do that.
Yeah.
So I asked him and he was like, "Honestly, I'm not the guy to ask. Here's my manager. Please exchange information with him." And now I have a business card that I can one day use and be like, "Hey, maybe we can't get Tom here, but who else do you have on your roster?"
Yeah.
So it's like,
That's
take
great.
the shot, be yourself, be confident, don't be too bold. It's like so many directions onto like how to handle those situations. But I do believe that being in the right place at the right time is like pretty top notch.
Yeah, for sure. I have a really bad one. So I was lucky enough to open there's this thing called the College Humor Live Tour, which was like years ago. And by the way, that was a very sweet story, and you nailed it. Like, sorry, I feel like I just like breezed right past it. That was you were very professional, and you were great. So that won't be the last time that this happens. So me sputtering after interrupting. So so there was this thing called the College Humor Live Tour, and then a very, very funny comedian named Dan Levy was opening it, and I had met him he went to Emerson College as well, and he let me do like a guest set, and it was at like LaSalle University's basketball court. It was the biggest audience I've ever seen, or I'd ever been in front of. I think I was 20, maybe 21 at the time, and it was Dan, John Mulaney, Christian Finnegan, and these guys, Jake and Amir, who were like a sketch group. And I did a guest set, and afterwards, like, this is before John Mulaney is what he is now, like just this incredible, you know, like comic. But I was already a big fan of his. I had already listened to his album, The Top Part or something. I thought it was amazing. And I like took a photo afterwards with Christian Finnegan and Mulaney, and my girlfriend at the time saw I was like fanning out before, just really not being professional, just so fanning out. Yeah. And then she shows me the photo, and she looks so upset, like just so disappointed at me. And I'm like, what is it? And I look, and I had put my placement of my hands was, you know, it was around Christian Finnegan, like professionally, you know, like, oh, like buddies. And then I had placed my hand around John Mulaney's waist. Like just, I had so much affection for him as a comedian. Like I held him as if he was like a prom date for me.
Prom photo,
and it's unacceptable. It was so embarrassing. Like it's my hand on his hip. It's so bad. Like it is so bad.
Did he end up saying anything?
No. I don't even know if he noticed. If he did, what an amazing guy that he knew how humiliated I would be and didn't even bring it up. That photo is somewhere and it needs to be destroyed. It wasn't okay. It was the
Oh
wrong thing to
man.
do.
Oh my God. That is amazing. Holy
Yeah.
shit. I need to see the photo now.
I'll DM it to you. I'm sure
And then
I
I
can
need it
find it.
like blown up in a poster.
Yes. Just one of those things where you have like a graph where you have the photo and then there's a zoom in of like my hand and it's
Yeah.
probably some sort of public service announcements in there somewhere.
Oh my
So,
God.
yeah.
So good. I am also curious about how quarantine has treated you. Like, have you been writing? Are you working on any projects? Anything you kind of want to plug or talk about?
So I started like a podcast, which has been great. You know, like I mean, I should have had one anyway, but it's also good for in terms of headlining, where it's kept like my performance stamina, I guess, which is like a
Right.
weird phrase, but it's like, oh, I can talk for it's only me, it's not an interview. So I speak for an hour alone. And it's like,
Okay.
it's not the same of like, oh, remembering the timing of a joke, like,
Mhm.
and pacing but, actually, no, pacing it is the same. So like, it does keep you pace, and even though there's not an audience there, you kind of have the internal clock when you're doing it of, oh, I've gone too long without being funny. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
oh, I really need to add something. So it kind of does add a pressure, even though it's not, 100% of the same thing when you're on stage. But
And it has to be
uh,
such a great exercise as well.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's called Blake's Takes, for God's sakes, and it's like a current events podcast. So,
Okay.
but yeah, it's been really fun, and it's funny. My friends and I were working on a TV show to pitch before this happened, and now it's we started working on it again, but we were waiting to see like, oh, I'm sure we'll be able to go in and pitch this in room soon, but that's
Mm.
just not going to be the case. So we're able to finish, like the things that you send to people to get people attached, like, the treatment of it, blah, 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 all that shit. But the interesting thing is the pitch has changed where now we're going to have to do it on Zoom probably, or not have to, we're going to get to do it. So
Yeah.
we went from, okay, how are we going to pitch this in a room where, how can we play with this world like to make the pitch more interesting and funny, because
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
going to be in different locations, like, so
Right.
it's like, okay, he's here, he's there, I'm here, and then they're all going to be in their squares. So how can you make that interesting and still compelling,
Yeah.
so that's been fun. It sucked at first, we're like, God, we're fucked. But then we're like, oh, you can do screen sharing, and there's all these
Yep.
like bits that you can kind of do within it. So
Hmm.
it has been that part's been fun. So, and then I've done a couple, like This Is Amazing, and I'll do Zoom shows and Instagram
Right.
live shows, and there's one called like Comedy Quarantine that Sam Varela, who's like an amazing producer, and Babs Gray and Teresa Lee, who's an amazing comic, do. And that one's fun because, I've only done it with Teresa hosting, and she will like kind of put up like a thing, like blocking the screen. So it's only
Yeah.
one
Yeah. Yeah.
person performing. And
Right.
then she's there though. She doesn't like, go fuck off in the other room. Like, so you
Yep.
can hear her laugh, which is
Yep.
great because she
You
like
need
great
that.
comic. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you respect her sense of humor too,
Of
which is good.
course.
So, and she's very funny, obviously.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
yeah, those have been fun. A lot of comics talk shit on those, but it's like, what else are you like, who do you think you are? Just do them. Like, it's fun. Worst comes to
Yeah.
worst, what, like, you talk for 10 minutes to no one allegedly, and then, like, it's not, yeah,
Right.
so they've been fun. Have you been doing any Zoom
Very cool.
shows or Zoom mics?
I did a show like the same way you're saying, where they like covered the mic and then they
Right.
were still there. So of course that was comforting to have at least one person, and that was on Instagram Live. And then I did a roast on Zoom, and then
Oh,
I've
wow.
done a couple interviews like where they're interviewing me, and then I've done a ton of these where I'm interviewing them. So
Cool.
I'm I haven't been like very like, okay, I'm gonna write every day. I'm gonna like make sure I'm doing at least a show a week. I just don't seem, it doesn't seem like an emergency to me to do that right now.
Yeah, it's not.
That's me personally.
Right.
I am recently, of course, using my platform for other things,
Of course.
and I'm honestly just trying to charge my batteries so that when I have to go back into the world, I am ready and like can fucking karate chop any negativity. So that's what
Yeah,
I'm
good
really
for you.
focusing on. But I do have like some premises written down. I have some ideas in the back of my mind. I do want to start a podcast. It's going to be called Each Other's Mothers. There's a whole story on that. If you ever want to hear it, just DM me.
Cool. Yeah.
So yeah, I have some ideas. I'll say that. But yeah, where can we find your podcast that you're working on?
Everywhere. Just Blake's Takes, for God's sakes. It's every Wednesday. Basically, I take a current event from the subjects of politics, sports, relationships, and leisure, which is a very open-ended one, the last one. And then I argue a take on it, either like a real take or, I try to find some sort of insane thing, to argue about something. So, it's been fun. Yeah. And you do like mapping it out it's very structured. I do some research, believe it or not. So, like one recently was that, FDR shouldn't have run for a fourth term was basically what it was. So, and then trying to justify that was like a fun challenge.
Got it.
But yeah.
I love it. All right, everybody, make sure you're looking out for Blake Wexler. Look for the podcast. Thank you so much for being here with us today. You're great, man.
Oh, you're the best. I will, for sure. And I can't wait to see you in person soon. And thank you for having me. You were great to talk to.
Anytime. Thank you. We'll talk soon. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, I think we did it. Okay, we did it. That's Blake Wexler, everybody. Make sure you look into his albums. There's 3 of them out there. He's out in LA. He is working clearly. Zoom, Instagram Live, all the things. He's doing the things, unlike myself. And we'll be back on Monday with Kristen Leidy. I'm not sure when I will show my face again because I am officially back to work on Monday at noon. If you're in the Ferndale area, come get some tacos. You'll know where to find me. I have been Johanna Madronda. You guys have been lovely. Thank you for the support. If you're out there fighting the good fight, continue to do that. Use your platform for love and for information and education. You know what I'm talking about. All right, you guys have a great night. Enjoy the weekend.